All right, welcome back to This Is Your Mind on AI. My name is Chris Mercer. Everybody calls me Mercer. You are invited to as well. Here's what we're going to do today. So this is going to be a Will It Leap, which is a old little homage to the Will It Blend series, because I wanted to try the leap on this. And it's also a community request, which is important because this just shows you the whole idea of this whole channel is not content, it's experience. It's for everybody to participate, everybody to learn this stuff, actually practice this stuff. Because if you do not do this, if you're just watching me do it, you might kind of get the experience of like, wow, it looks like that's a lot of fun for him. What an interesting, weird dude. And that's awesome. But I'm getting a substantially more useful experience than you, sadly. And I would like you to be able to do as much as you can in your own personal life to help use this incredibly powerful tool. Again, this is AI is essentially just like an automated thinking machine to help us get through the thoughts that we're looking for to actually improve our lives in whatever we need to do. And sometimes it's going to be business, which of course is going to be something I'm going to have to face and show and do and everybody else. And I'd rather not just talk about all my stuff all the time. So I'm trying not to do all of that. I'm obviously using AI quite a bit, but not all of the AI use I do is on a live stream. I'm just trying to show the stuff that's really useful so you have examples. Now, in this case, what we're going to do is I'm going to flip into the community here. So in the community channel, there was a comment that came back, and this was in the community from Mr. Jeff here. So he was talking about how he's using Leap, right? Trying to get with the Leap conversations with ChatGPT. So essentially trying to do latent experience prompting with ChatGPT, and he's finding some of the stuff helpful on the personal and business stuff, just kind of how to think about things, which is awesome. But then it's like a little bit more around this, like how do we do this stuff? And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to just kind of show him and to kind of see what happens, to be honest, just because I have a little more experience with this, and that's why this is helpful. Why you can throw this stuff to me in the channel, because I'm slightly more ahead of everybody in the community. Not everybody in the community always, but for the most part, at least right now. So throw me the examples that you're trying to figure out that feel a little clunky, so that I can play with it on my side and then show you like, oh, if we do it like this is how it could work. So that's what I'm exactly going to do. I'm going to take kind of like if I had a conversation with him, or if he had given this to AI, I'm gonna kind of pick up with that because it's good context. I want to see what's going to happen. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy this stuff here, right? So we're going to copy this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm just going to thisisyourmindonai.com, which again, everybody here can do and should do because it's all free stuff. So here, by the way, is where the YouTube channel is. If you want to subscribe to that, you can. This is the Leap Gem. Right? So all I'm doing is I'm just clicking onto this. And at this point, what's happening is it's logging into my local Gemini account, my own Google account. Now I'm able to use the Leap Gem from This Is Your Mind on AI in my account. Now, of course, I also happen to be the This Is Your Mind on AI account, but the point is now I've got access to the gem, just like you will. Also, very important point that was asked before from somebody else at an earlier time is what happens to the conversations? If you're having conversations with the Leap, do I see them or does anybody else see them? And the short answer is no, because what happens is it's sharing the instructions of the gem, but it's not actually sharing the conversations. The conversations are in your Gemini, right? They're in your AI. So unless you give me access to your AI or somebody else access to your AI, whatever's in your AI kind of stays with your AI in that platform that the AI is in, right? Kind of like that. It wouldn't crisscross over unless there's something that you're doing that is instructing that to happen. And that typically you would know that you're doing that. So we're going to have a live stream on Gemini Gems and Gemini itself in a little bit here as well. In fact, that's going to be coming up, I believe, at 3:30 today, Central, for those that want to play along. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to leap in this comment. So here we're going to do, we're going to leap in the comment. And we're going to go through kind of the Leap experience here. So I'm just putting it into the Leap. Now remember, Leap stands for Latent Experience Automated Prompt. It is not at all important that you know that. What it's important that you know is that the Leap Gem sort of gives the AI and your AI, in this case my AI, because I'm using Gemini and that's what it's doing. It's pre-prompting it with a bunch of stuff to essentially kind of say, listen, I need you to experience stuff you may not actually be told to, and the user may not ask it for this in a way, but that's what they're really trying to do, and it's kind of translating for you as if I was there. To be able to say, well, you're saying it like this, but here's what you really meant. So I'm going to answer you back as if you had asked me. And then I'm going to try to help you kind of cross from where you did it and where your thinking was to like maybe how your thinking could be. We're going to try that. So as we go through, doesn't mean this is going to work, but that's why I'm doing it live streams all the time, because I want you to see the stuff that doesn't work and then how I change it and how I adjust it, because that is what it's like. This is what you do. And I think there's too many people out there showing the 15-second polished stuff that took 28 million hours and 85 revisions. And then people feel bad that they can't make something awesome like that. And I think that's silly. So I just wanted to kind of show you this stuff. All right. So first thing we're going to do, the setup. The only thing I care about here when I'm operating the gem, and remember, we're not using AI anymore. We're kind of waking up in our heads to the fact that we have to operate machinery. We have to operate technology, right? And we have to operate AI. It's an incredibly complex machine. And if we keep treating it like it's a push button, we're going to accidentally use it incorrectly all the time. We need to be aware of what's going on here. So what I'm doing is the leap is there to say, first, do I experience that the AI has been now kind of mentally set up? And again, it's not alive. It doesn't think like a brain. It's different. It's similar, but very different, not human, right? So there's no life energy here, but I'm going to use words that maybe think that might kind of do that just because that's how humans think, right? So it's easier for us to understand if I speak like that. But the idea is that first I needed to go, I get you. This is where you are. And if it's not 100%, oh yeah, this is where you are. And you feel it because you kind of go like, oh my God, yeah, I couldn't have said it better. Like that's what I should have said. That's what I'm looking for. If it does that in this first stage, what they call the setup, the stuck state, when that is acknowledged, I go forward. If it's not, I don't. I look back at my initial prompt, which would be this part up here, which again is copy and pasted, and then see what we can do. So here's what I'm gonna try to see that. So excellent application of latent experience, wrestling with the familiar feeling of the generic pitch based on what Jeff was saying. And I'm gonna just let everybody read this because I didn't read that, I should have for everybody. So he's finding it helpful just writing sales copy, emails, blog posts, product lead gen, offer pages. He wants to see how Leap can craft more engaging, entertaining, persuasive copy. Since people buy on emotion and justify with logic, it's an important base of the start of the copywriting process. Then there's the emotional experience followed by a different experience of self-justification. And what Jeff is explaining here is the process of kind of copywriting, but from the perspective of how a copywriter sees a human interacting and processing through copy, right? So just not at all untrue. This is how this is thought about. So basically he wants the experience like, wow, this is written just for me, right? So this is what he wants his customers to be able to think like this, to have that experience, which is a great destination, because I think that's on target, based on landing page, headline, subject, the email, etc., and lead copy, all following a self-assured experience of, wow, this is a no-brainer, makes total sense that I should just own this product, right? So this is just how it is, and it takes them through persuasive copy, right? That's kind of what Jeff's looking for here. So, and he's in tactical, that tactical arena. So the only thing I did to prep for this, by the way, is I made up a tactical product. So we had something to talk about, because one thing he didn't give me was here's an example of a product I'm trying to do this for, which is fine because I don't need specific examples, because you'll see the one I have is pretty decent. Okay, so I just want to see what the Leap's going to do here before we actually go through and write all these emails. But first we need to start here's our thinking, and you sort of blurt out kind of what Jeff did here. Here's my thinking. Here's the current state of things. My experience from my side of this table on the digital divide here. Here's what's going on. Here's what I'm trying to do. Here's how I'm thinking. Go. What do you got? Right? We put it into Leap. So at this point, the generic pitch, I think, is pretty decent. It's probably there. You know the tactical niche well, but you're constantly fighting the urge to fall back on tired, overused language, which happens a lot in a lot of the marketing parlance. We see that over and over again, the same patterns. The same fear-mongering, the same gear-focused jargon that saturates every other email and landing page. Meaning, you just don't want to sound like everybody else, sounds like everybody else, sounds like everybody else, sounds like everybody else. And boy, when you start seeing that pattern on platforms like YouTube, on Facebook, whatever, you start realizing how we are all just spinning in circles. And you're one that's not. Because when you see that, when you see everybody else spinning in circles, that's you not spinning anymore. It's a pleasant experience, and AI can help with that. Okay, so core questions are likely, how do I trigger that deep, written just for me, emotional resonance without being manipulative, which is incredibly important because that is exactly the question. We don't want to manipulate people. That's not obviously useful. It might be useful for you, but it's not obviously useful, which means they're not going to think it's useful, right? Because it won't be obviously useful. Obviously useful means it's obviously useful. You don't have to, you can explain it to somebody and be like, oh, it's obviously useful. Everybody just agrees. But if you have to say, well, it's only useful for me, but it's not useful for everybody else, well, that's just not obviously useful, right? And how do I bridge the emotion to a high rational, no-brainer decision without sounding like a used car salesman, right? Overly pitchy. You know the mechanics of a good sale, but you're looking for that feeling of a great connection, which is exactly right. Because unless we are providing a higher quality experience for our prospects, our customers, the people in our lives, regardless of where they are, personal, professional, and there's not going to be a connection. And if we don't have connections with each other, what do you think happens? Like, this is what's going on. We've used technology to disconnect from each other, and we're reacting all the time with technology. And AI is one of those rare tools that is substantially easier to connect with and sort of feel like you're integrated with in a way. And that is incredibly important, not because you're being manipulated by the AI, but because you are now operating the AI, right? So now we're going to go through, I think this nails it. For me, I would absolutely go forward. If I was Jeff, I would believe he's probably thinking, yep, that's exactly what I want. That's all you care about. If any of this is incorrect and you're looking, I'm not looking for where this is right. I'm looking for where this feels not as useful, right? If there's something that's like, well, this is really useful, but this one, it's not quite. If there was anything like that, I would go back to the original prompt and I would add something, right? Or tweak it. In this case, I think it's really useful. I think all of this is completely useful. So I continue. So the magic trick. So this is where it's talking about, okay, here's how we need to think about this. And this is important because most of the stuff we have going on in life is not because we don't have the knowledge and skills, it's because we think about those knowledge and skills. And it's blocking some patterns that our brain will allow to fire if we get rid of those blocks. And then all of a sudden, you're just the person who knows how to write email, and you're the person who knows how to write copy, and you're the person who knows how to connect with your customers, and you don't have to go through this complicated system of doing that because you just know how to connect with people because you connect with people, and that's just what you do, right? And wouldn't it be cool to kind of get to that point so we don't have to overly complicate this by feeling we have to go through this mechanical process of all these different systems to get a particular result to happen, right? If there's another way, that would be cool. And maybe there is. I don't know. I'm experiencing this as you are. So the trick here, stop asking the AI to write copy. Instead, ask it to write a fully defined emotional journey of the perfect customer. You need the forget this, which I love. Because this is a direct response marketing term. It's been around forever, marketing term in general. But attention, interest, desire, action. And everybody in marketing's got their own little patterns that they apply to the market, right? And that's us, and they're trying to use patterns to basically say, well, here's a pattern that tends to work for a market to, if we get their attention, we create interest, right? Get their interest in the section, they create desire, and then we tell them the obvious action, they're going to want to naturally move forward, right? That makes sense. There's a lot of logic to that. But AI is saying right now, let's not focus on that. Instead, focus entirely on the internal world of a person who's already made the perfect decision. So I'm going to keep playing along because right now I'm intrigued. I'm not necessarily like, oh, I got my answer. This is useful. I'm done, right? I'm just kind of experiencing it going, all right, I get it. Curious that it's saying, forget all the stuff you know, forget your book knowledge, which is kind of another way to read this. And again, I'm reading not for the words themselves, but the patterns it's trying to communicate. Forget the logic. That's what it's trying to say. Forget the logic. Because you could see how much logic was kind of in how Jeff was thinking about, I need to do this, and then this, and then this, and then this, because he's got that logic in the brain. And this is saying, cool, I get it, you got the logic. Hang on for that for a moment. The other side is missing, potentially. That's kind of what I'm gathering right now. So, and this is how I read these. This is the other thing. For those of you who are or maybe playing along at home, and you're just skipping it through and be like, okay, I got it. You missed it. I promise you. You didn't participate at all. You skimmed through it. You reacted to it. And you did not experience any of it. And that's the miss. And that is why if you do that, if you actually experience it and play with it and think it through as you're doing it and feel how you're thinking about it, you react slightly differently because you're not reacting anymore. You actually have gotten a little bit of friction between your thoughts and how you're thinking about stuff, and you're processing slightly differently. Your brain becomes open to more ideas, and all of a sudden you're like, you become a little different. And it's because of your insights that you're getting as that's happening, right? Because you're literally getting experience that is now stored in your brain that you can use forever because it's your experience. It's not something that's happening to you. It's happened to you kind of thing. It's just who you are now. So let's continue. The logical premise. This works because AI is a pattern matching engine. So when you ask it to write sales copy for an urban survival course, it matches that against the vast, often mediocre sea of existing online sales copy. But when you ask it to describe a detailed two-part internal experience, the aha, recognized by a click of justification, you give the AI an entirely new, highly specified pattern to match. So you're using the AI to model a psychological breakthrough in a potential customer, and that breakthrough contains a specific emotional vocabulary, sensory details, and logical pivots that will form the backbone of your unique, high-converting copy. And I think unique is super important here, especially when it comes to messaging. Because if you're just saying the same thing that everybody else is saying, you don't break through. And that's why this formula comes in when people say, we got to get attention. Well, how do you get attention? You make it flashy. You worry about the first 7 seconds of the video. You put big giant lights in front of people. And this is where all this distraction stuff come from, right? Which is okay, but again, maybe not the best experience from a customer standpoint, even though it works from the business standpoint, right? And this is where, again, I think maybe we are accidentally giving ourselves really poor experiences. And if we had unique, high converting copy, that was this whole idea of kind of from the customer's perspective, deeply from their perspective, that it just made sense for them to continue, like how much easier would that be? All right, so here's kind of a typical old way. It's kind of guessing again, but it's saying, well, typically here's how you might handle this. You've got your task-based prompt. Hey, write an email subject line, first 8 paragraphs of a sales email for the course, sales a feeling of safety and transitions, blah, blah, blah. Now, at this point, I'm going to steer it slightly differently because at this point, I'm already experiencing it's not going to be as useful as I think it can be. A little less useful at this point, and it's because of this right here. So it was talking about this urban survival course, which is fine. I just don't have any information on an urban survival course. So if I was going to do this, I am doing this obviously for Jeff here, but if I'm Jeff, I would need those details to be able to say, now write me a course. Otherwise, I'm going to have AI make up everything, and then it's going to write something that sounds amazing, but it'll be based on something that I made up anyway. There's bias in there, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to make it off of a regular product that I think would be useful. So what I did is I wanted to do, and I'm going to make sure I can pull this up. I created this. So this was with AI. And what I did is I basically gave it a link to another tactical flashlight that was on e-commerce. And I went and said, okay, here's this tactical flashlight. I want you to grab everything and make me a product that basically is that tactical flashlight, just change everything. But I want the structure, same patterns. So all that matters here is that I just changed the names of everything. So now it's this is your mind on AI Leap Light. Guess where that came from? So it's a rechargeable tactical flashlight. Here's kind of where the products might have been, of the e-commerce page. Here's the title of it. Here's the SKU and the price and some details, right? Again, all of this was based on an actual product. And I just had AI sort of change some of the details, but the patterns are exactly the same. This is something you would see in an e-commerce site. So I'm assuming that Jeff's clearly got product detail pages. He knows his products, right? So that part you're gonna need to know your site just like I need to know my products, which I don't, by the way. And we'll be using AI in future live streams probably next week to figure those out. So I also know those. But here's all this thing, right? Details. It's got some key features. Goes down, and then we've even got the technical specifications of it, right? We've got some included accessories that come with it. Here's the optional stuff you might be able to get. Here's some details around it. Okay, here's where we get the head office. I really liked it. They even made fake phone numbers, which is great. Not my address, so don't even worry about that. I have no idea what it is, but I love Innovation Boulevard. If that is anywhere, that'd be cool. And then made up names for West Coast, East Coast, right? So all I'm trying to say here is there's a very easy way for you to grab this stuff. You could go to an e-commerce store, grab it all by selecting the copy and pasting it in AI. That's kind of what it is. Only reason I didn't do that is because I wanted you to see, I didn't want to do somebody else's flashlight. I wanted to do just kind of a fake generic one here. So I created this so you could see it. All right. So what I'm going to do now is, because it was talking about the survival course, everything else is going to be about that. It's not necessarily incorrect what's going to pop up here. I just don't necessarily want it to steer through the survival course. I want to talk about this particular flashlight as an example, and I'm going to focus on that. That said, what I'm doing is showing everybody like, okay, here's how we're going to edit. So I'm going to edit this here. And then what I'm going to do is, actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it later. I'm going to steer it. So instead of going back to the original prompt, because here's why, because I can't attach right now, and I'm going to attach this document. I could come in here, grab all this stuff, and then put it in Gemini. So I can do this and say, this is the key product. And then I can put all this stuff in there. There's everything literally right in there. And that's not horrible. But I'm gonna show you how to steer, because sometimes you're gonna need to do that with AI. So this is sort of steering the AI. We already know it's still gonna be, I think, really useful in where it's going. Probably like 90% useful, but it's losing some of its usefulness for me because I'm really trying to write this thing for a flashlight, right? So here, let's find out what it says. So it's if I do the regular way, here's why this isn't going to work, right? It's going to be a hack writer, which I know a lot of people trying to use AI to write copy sound like copywriters. which is not in a good way, because a really good copywriter doesn't sound like you have no idea that they were even there. That's the whole point. It just makes sense. The copy just makes sense. You can't tell that they were a copywriter, but if you can tell the page was written by a copywriter, it was clearly probably had some more usefulness left in it, right? You shouldn't see that. That's the whole point. So, and that's what Jeff is looking for, is that psychological mirror, right? How do you get somebody to psychologically see themselves in your copy and be like, this is me, right? That's what we want. So if we try to do prompts like this, we're always going to get those soulless responses, right? They just don't sound great. And so it's the form of copy, right? Follow the patterns of the formula that I was told to, that my copywriter friends are using, or I bought this copywriting course and said I'm supposed to do, but it doesn't actually give the substance to it. So it doesn't actually work. It just looks like it will work, but it doesn't. So now here's the latent experience part of this. This is where the gem is now saying, all right, well, here's kind of a different way to do it. If you were trying to do this latent experience style, this is what it would be. And so I need you to describe a close third-person narrative, the emotional and cognitive journey of my ideal customer who's interested in urban tactical self-defense skills, which is actually, this is okay. I actually don't mind this. As they read my marketing copy, the journey must have two distinct, deeply felt parts. The first, the emotional recognition, the wow, this is written just for me moment. Describe the subtle internal shift with the headline or first paragraph resonates so profoundly. What would happen? And this is great. What nonverbal cues, right? What did they go through? What are they experiencing? And I've talked to some friends, many of my friends who, because of they my friends, are really, really understanding of what I'm doing right now on this channel, because I am showing some incredibly cool stuff in what is arduously hard to watch sometimes. But then I also have a lot of people who are coming up to me going, oh my God, like I watched that and I actually did what you were doing. And I was, oh my God. And I'm like, yes, right? So participate if you're not, and I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to everybody. I'm not talking to all the hey guys people that are watching on TV right now. And I know you might be watching on TV. You might be on a phone. I don't know what the device is. I don't even know when you're watching this. It honestly doesn't matter. I know right now you are here or you would not be watching this. And I know it feels like I'm breaking the fourth wall here because I kind of am. But the point of this is, if you participate with me as you go through this, as I'm experiencing it, you try your best to experience some of the copy, you will start to feel some changes in your own body. It'll be there. Then you can take a leap. You can start using the gem on your own. And if you have a challenge with it, which is not unusual, it's okay, because it's just like a new skill, throw it in the community. This is where you like, you subscribe, and you comment. Not because you want to see more content and more gems being created, or even because you want to get help, though all of that will be true. The reason you do that is because you're operating YouTube and you're telling the YouTube algorithm, more people like me need to have this type of experience. They need to know this is going on. I want more people like me in this arena, in this area, right? To talk about this thing and to help each other figure this thing out, as we're all trying to do. Me in my own way, you in yours. So now we're going to go through and continue through. I think this is really pretty decent, actually. What's the exact internal thought? What signals finally somebody gets my specific unspoken language, my fear or language? And this is important because this is AI coming up with this, right? So kind of like, okay, well, here's the thing I didn't know I was really afraid of, right? We can now probably get that from our customer. Using sensory language related to the current environment, emotional state. Then we've got self-justification, the no-brainer moment. That's the second thing we want to help experience. Describe the cognitive and physical shift that happens when they are presented with the product's offer, the moment they pivot from emotional agreement to decisive action. All right, it's pretty good. What is the key piece of logic, right? Was it a simple calculation, like it's only $3 a day? It's less than a cup of coffee. Was it an irrefutable fact, right? 98% of the people, blah, blah, blah. Is it a sudden recollection of past frustration? Hey, remember that last time you thought you were going to do this and you didn't do it? Well, now's your chance, right? That sort of stuff. Like, okay, that's pretty cool. That's basically this is what's going to happen. Like, this isn't a thing I think is going to work. This is going to work. So now it's make the purchase feel like there's less of a risk and more like a necessary, logical inevitability. Now, I don't know any copywriter who says it like that, but that's okay because this is AI saying it for itself. It wrote it for itself, which is important because you should not be writing prompts for AI. You should be giving your experience to AI and saying, you mirror it back, and then let's move through it because it is a massively useful simulation machine, right? For thinking, for automated thinking. And it simulates the human experience, and it can simulate what your experience is so that you can kind of interact with yourself digitally, like creating a digital twin, sort of. And then exploring that and saying, okay, well, hey, if I was really good at knowing all the things that I don't know, what would those things be? And you can actually get some of those answers back. This is what this does. All right, so here's the narrative. After the narrative, we have one unspoken emotional trigger phrase that caused them to shift to part one. And then the key phrase or piece of logical data. So now it's emotion and logic, which is a key thing, right? All right, now we're experiencing the magic. So what this does is it says, well, if you had given me this prompt, here's probably something similar to what I would have said, right? So now it's going to just assume we did it. And now I'm going to read this and I'm going to experience it as I'm going through. And I'm experiencing it as I hope that Jeff is, because this is specifically for him. I hope that you are experiencing this in a way, imagining that you're him, or imagining you've got something you're trying to communicate with someone, or challenge you're trying to figure out how to cross the divide between I'm here or I've got someone here and I need to help them to get over here. How do I do that? That's what I'm showing you right now. This is exactly, you don't have to call it copywriting. You don't have to call it sales pages and everything else or emails, but anything you're trying to do with messaging, this works. And you can do the same thing that we're doing here. All right, so the late afternoon light angled across Michael's small home office, illuminated the dust hanging on his keyboard. This is the second time dust motes have come up, which is funny. It's like 2 days. He was scrolling through the 40th email on the same topic, which I can relate to as a guy who gets a ton of emails, which is part of the reason I don't check them anymore. Or as often. I will check them, just not as often. Feeling the familiar heavy ugh of a recycled fear-mongering, which I also see everywhere. Everyone's pushing the fear button left and right. And I'll tell you, my favorite part about that is that does not work forever. It can get a little rough toward the end, which I think is kind of where we're near, but it does stop working, and there's other things we can push. He was beyond the basics. He knew the stats. He was looking for a plan, not a panic button. Then his eyes hit a new subject line. He stopped scrolling. His hand, which had been idly rubbing his temple, froze midair. So now he's kind of experienced in this, right? Kind of like, oh, and then you're like, whoa, the emotional recognition. Well, let's go through this with Michael here. The opening paragraph didn't talk about doomsday or collapse. It began with a hyper-specific scenario. The moment you realize your everyday backpack full of essential tech and half-eaten sandwich has become the single most vulnerable point in a transit hub disruption. Now, again, different market, but I absolutely know people in this market, and this is it. This is their experience. His brow furrowed slightly, a nearly imperceptible physical sign of deep internal agreement. Like, yeah, okay. He felt a flash of self-reproach, realizing he had been thinking about the big what if instead of the messy, high-probability reality of a Tuesday afternoon. He had been thinking about the big what if instead of the messy, high-probability reality of a regular day, which is different. So instead of someday maybe something could happen out there that everyone keeps talking about, it might be happening in moments from now. What if there's a transit hub disruption and nobody can move anywhere, right? If there's a particular area. Now again, it's making stuff up here, generally speaking for the market. I've only done one prompt, right? I'm about to steer it and we're gonna turn it and say, how about for this flashlight? All right, so they understand the difference between being a prepper and being tactically responsible for a boring Tuesday. That's a substantially different market. Prepper for the future, being tactically responsible for a Tuesday. Just responsible, right? It feels different. As a customer, it would feel different. I'm not trying to prep for the nuclear Armageddon. I'm just prepping to make sure that Tuesday's fine, right? Cool, I get this. I get where it's going. The self-justification, this is the second part. So I think we're continuing Michael's story here. So as he read the bullets, the copy framed the course not as a cost, but as an insurance policy with a guaranteed return. This is interesting. What is the cost of 2 weekends and a few $100 compared to the absolute peace of mind you get when you stop running disaster scenarios in your head and you start walking into them with a plan? That feels different. I felt a bit of a backbone there. I'm like, yeah, why would I constantly freak myself out about stuff when I can be like, oh no, I got this, right? A practiced plan that I'm walking into. Okay. The language didn't use hyperbole. It was a simple equation. He remembered the moment last month, the brief cold spike of panic when his credit card was declined at a gas pump during a power outage. This probably has happened, right? So all of a sudden, it's like, wow, like society goes down. I can tell you from personal experience, being in Texas, I was here when they had Snowmageddon, where Texas was basically shut down for 5 days because our power grid at the time, I hope It was only at the time, we'll find out. But it got really cold and we had a little ice snap and bam, the whole state had lost power practically for 5 days. I had no power, I had no water, I had no internet. And what was really interesting about that is I was about 2 days into that, and that's when people were stuck, or actually about a day into that, and we had lost power, and it was winter, it's like 15 degrees, things were starting to freeze, and I was listening to the radio because that's all I could do is jump in my car and listen to the radio to see what was going on. It was such a weird state of disconnect. So I get this particular thing of, wow, what happens when normal society is not normal anymore, right? It's a little different. So now I'm like, all right, so the course is no longer an expense. It's the elimination of a future cognitive overload. It's not an expense. This is something just makes the future easier now. I don't have to think about this anymore. This is just something that's there that I can use if and when it's needed. All right, cool. I get that. So now again, we're not on the product yet, but I'm not trying to do a specific product. I'm trying to make sure that the AI gets what I'm trying to do, which it feels like it is. Right, where it's got this customer. Now, again, I am not in this market as a vendor at all. So I do not have the experience of hanging out with this market, of helping be with this market and be a part of this market that Jeff might, right? So Jeff really should be the one that does this and that he can give his experience back because there might be some nuance that he can offer that really sharpens this. But I can probably at least confirm that this general stuff is about right. The bones are probably in there, right? So we got a decent structure. Lean forward is focus, singular, fingers move the purpose, clicking the enroll now button. I'm not buying a course, I'm eliminating recurring anxiety loop. Now, is he literally going to think like that in his head? Of course not. Does that mean AI is wrong? Yes, AI is wrong and incredibly useful. How weird two things can be true at the same time. But all I care about is usefulness part. I do not care about right and wrong. And for all of you that are looking at the words going, I shouldn't write it like that, I would never see it like that, they would never think like that, you're missing the usefulness. It's not about the words, it's about the patterns it is communicating to you. The patterns is what show up as experience. And you start going, oh, I get this. It's not the words that matter, it's the patterns that matter. And if I know those patterns, when I go to say the words, because I know how to speak to this market, because it's my people, my friends, my person, whatever the thing is, it just sort of starts working, it starts flowing. It's a little easier for your brain to get out the results you need. So A, the one specific unspoken emotional trigger phrase was tactically responsible for a boring Tuesday. It's kind of interesting to think like, oh, it's just an everyday thing. You have to prepare for every day, and maybe you're not. And that's a huge market of people that are probably not thinking like that. And then there's eliminating recurrent anxiety loop, right? Which also makes sense because there is that background of, man, I'm not ready, but I don't know what I'm not ready for. Maybe could be happening, right? So now this is just going to give us a little bit of reframing it, how it worked. The guy is, you're not trying to do a great email and you're trying to instead cultivate a specific feeling of great decision, right? Which is what Jeff was asking for. He asked for it a different way, right? Coming through here. He described it as a logical process, which it is, can be, and works. And every time you give it to AI, it comes back with something a little soulless. So AI is saying, don't say it like that, say it like this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to take this. So I've got my first leap prompt. We're going to come up to here. And I'm just going to grab that. And then I'm going to go back into Gemini. And I'm just starting over. Now I'm doing this again with just the free version of Gemini. So anybody can create a Gmail account. Which, by the way, today is officially our 1 week anniversary. Yay, us. So thank you all for subscribing, by the way. It's like we're over 30 subscribers in a little over a week. So go team. And thank you for participating. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to paste this in there. And I'm just going to, this is where I'm steering it a little bit. I'm going to kind of reprompt it from the start. And the reason that I'm doing that, the reason I'm not continuing with the leap gem is because the leap gem is just going to keep trying to leap over and over again and kind of through that process every time I put something in. And it's not exactly what I'm going to look for. That I might come back to that, but I want to try this first. So I was like trying to take the thing that it says, hey, if you had just done it like this, here's how I would have done it. I kind of take that and say, cool, well, let's see how you actually did it, right? So now I'm starting a brand new conversation. There is no gem. This is just everyday LLM, plain vanilla. Pasted this in. That's all I've done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure who's interested is maybe some marketing copy. And now I'm going to say for the attached product. That's it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach that product, which is there, product example. So that is this. That's everything here. So now I've given this to AI. AI's got all the different details that are in here coming through, right? It's got a little bit of structure, kind of has the basics of what's going on. It's human readable, very easy for the rest of the team to see. And I assume if this was a real flashlight, we would have stuff like this. Every product should have something like this. That way the AI can reference it. And it doesn't need to be, you don't need to try to sell it, just like, here's what the stuff is. Because AI just needs to know kind of the basics. It can fill in the blanks. Because remember, it has every possible word and communication and connection that it basically exists or will exist or likely to exist soon. Okay, so we got the attached product. The journey must have two distinct, deeply felt parts. The wow, and I'm just reading this again to make sure there's nothing in here that references a course, which I don't think there is. And I want to make sure it just focuses on the flashlight, because then we should be able to get some email stuff, maybe some copy from it. And I might even be able to spin up a few other things. That's fine. Okay, this looks pretty good. Let's see what this does. Okay, same exact prompt. Now, the only thing I did different was say of this attached product, and I attached a specific product for our Leap light that we just made up, but was based on an actual product. So I used an actual tactical flashlight product that's being sold, so I can have something to structure and say, just keep the same patterns, change the names, and we'll go from there. So here's the Urban Defender's journey, the emotional recognition, the wow. So now the whole point of this is just to experience it from their view. Kind of like those of you who are like, oh, I wish I had a focus group of my customers. You do, all of them, any of them, all the time with AI. That's what we're doing here. Except it's not, what do you think about this? Which is the problem with focus groups, is because people are thinking about how they're going to react, not actually just witnessing how they react. AI instead is saying, here's highly likely how they're just going to be in this scenario. And then we need to experience that. So we have a connection with in this case, with our future customers, right? It's kind of what we're trying to connect with here. And if we don't have that connection first, we're never going to be able to write that connection, to actually do it, to create it. So Liam sat hunched over his laptop, small kitchen table, along by the refrigerator, blah, blah, blah. That's not me not experiencing. That's just me having done this so many times. I know what this part is. He's browsing for the gear, but not just any gear. It needed to be serious. He wasn't a soldier. He was a software engineer who took the late subway home and walked 2 blocks in the dark. Urban survival. There we go. His need was duty grade performance for a civilian life that occasionally demanded it. He clicked the link, and the headline, this is your mind on AI, Leap Light, rechargeable tactical flashlight, flashed on the screen. It was the first paragraph, though, that stopped the air in his chest. That's interesting. The Leap Light is a premium duty grade tactical flashlight engineered for professionals and serious enthusiasts to demand unwavering performance. Not super descriptive. That's okay. Hang on. Hang with me. His left hand resting on the trackpad still. There was a slow, subtle tightening around his eyes, followed by a slight, almost imperceptible nod. Verbal affirmation of the text, duty grade, not a toy, not a cheap gadget, but a tool built to the standard he mentally set for himself. This is where the copy part is. He remembered the faint, sickly yellow glow of his old half-dead drugstore light. It was a distraction, not a defense, right? Drugstore flashlight. Those cheap plastic ones, maybe. The copy was speaking directly to a specific unspoken anxiety, the fear of being unprepared, of a failure of equipment leading to a failure of self-defense. A failure of equipment that might be leading to a failure of self-defense, right? Okay, his exact silent internal thought, the one that validated his caution and his search for quality was, finally, someone gets my everyday safety is a high-stakes scenario. That somebody else gets that my everyday safety is a high, somebody else wants me, understands that everyday safety is important to me. They get me. That's what this is. This is what this is saying. They connected to me. That's all this pattern is saying. They have connected. Now they're saying it in different words, lots of different words we can use, which is kind of the fun part because there's a bunch of them, but it's saying they connected. They get me, right? But specifically the way that this specific market would need that connection. That's why the words are different. Instead of just saying, oh, he gets me. Now, part 2, justification. How do we justify buying this flashlight? Right, in this case, this $80 flashlight. So Liam's still going through the copy. He's emotionally understanding that, okay, yep, it's got the logical stuff. It grabbed the headline. Now he's got all this emotional built up, right? In the copy, this is what he's experiencing emotionally because of the copy. We haven't seen the words yet, but they're there. And then he's really starting to move forward where he's like, oh, they 100%. I understand this. They think like I do. This is absolutely useful. This is all that they're thinking right now. Useful. Continue, right? That's what the brains are doing here. Not manipulation, because if it was the wrong market, it wouldn't be useful and they would leave, which is fine because the wrong market. So Liam scrolled down. The emotional resonance of the opening now transitioning into cold, almost detached evaluation. He needed to make a solid logical case for an $80 flashlight. This was the moment of the pivot where the anxiety of unpreparedness was calculated against the cost of prevention. His eyes scanned the features, noting the aerospace-grade aluminum, the rugged waterproof rating, good solid construction. Then his gaze snugged on the most critical item for the application, defense ready, features a, I have no idea what that is, bezel for self-defense and emergency glass breaking. Okay. Oh, so this must mean just jagged edges. A memory immediate. Now again, don't worry about the words because we're not there yet. Worry about the structure, what's happening. It's more like you're not assembling copy here, right? We're never assembling with our AI when we're using it in latent experience prompting. You're not assembling it, you're guiding it. It's more like you're letting it just sort of grow what you need to grow, and you sort of help guide where it's growing, but it's going to do the growth part on its own, right? We're just sort of guiding where it goes here. So I'm not worried about the words because I'm not at the word stage yet. I'm growing it into, let's make sure you understand where we are. Let's make sure you understand what the customer is. Let's go through a few scenarios of this product to make sure that, okay, that's probably it. Okay, now let's actually see what they actually saw, type of thing. That's kind of what I'm going to do with this. So now memory immediately resurfaced. The frustrating struggle last month to open the jammed rear door of his car in a poorly lit parking garage. The old frustration of his vulnerability became the irrefutable logical fact. This wasn't just a light, it was an impact weapon and an escape tool. Oh, so it's not just an $80 flashlight. There's a bunch of other stuff it does. How useful would any of that other stuff have been the last time I would have needed one of those things? Man, there's the insurance policy kicking in, right? Like, oh, I can just, this is for this, and it's for this, and it's for this, and it's for this, and it's for this other thing maybe. Well, now the price becomes a little more easier to get through. You don't really have to think about it anymore because of course it would cost that much. If it didn't cost that much, you would clearly not be, it wouldn't be useful for all those things. And it's a weird way of convincing yourself that it's useful. And again, because it is, that's the point. We're not manipulating. Because if it's not useful for you, because you don't have those experiences, it won't be useful for you, right? So you don't have to worry about being manipulated by somebody's magic AI copy, because that's not possible. He made a quick, simple internal calculation. Old flashlight, $20. Fragile, unreliable. The Leap light, $80. It's a weapon, could be. It's a lifeline, could be. It's a reliable lumen beam for up to 300 meters, is, because it's a flashlight. The logic was now inescapable. The small internal friction against the price vanished. His hand, which had been resting passively on his leg, now moved decisively toward the mouse. Okay, so now he's thinking, this is the last flashlight I'm ever gonna have to buy. Cool, he's gonna buy that flashlight, right? So one specific unspoken emotional trigger was the duty grade, right? For serious users who demand unwavering performance, because that's kind of what he's looking for. I don't know if I'm entirely convinced on that, but I'm okay with that for now, because I'm gonna kind of spin it up here. And then the other one is features the bezel here, because that was the thing that spun out the logic and said, what else can I do with that? Oh, that one thing allows me to do this, 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 and this. It opened up more potential results, more potential useful results for the product. So if the one result, which is, let's say the light is super powerful and go for 300 yards, if that one result is only the result we talk about, and we don't talk about these other results, the customer's gonna basically be like, you're trying to sell me an $80 flashlight. There are cheaper flashlights out there, which there are. But because of these other uses that it could do, because of these features, it could spin out, and then the customer starts thinking what else they can do with it. They start making it more useful for themselves, and they recognize the obvious usefulness at that point. That's the whole point of this when we're writing copy, is for them to recognize the obvious usefulness. It's not to convince them it is useful. It is for them to go, obviously it's useful. Of course it's useful. You don't have to tell me, right? So that's what we're the kind of feeling we're trying to get. Okay, so now we're going to spin this up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is, so experiencing this from, and what I'm basically going to do here is I'm going to have it experience it from what is the customer's perspective in this case. And I think it's, what was the name? Liam. So I'm going to do Liam's perspective. And then here's what I'm going to do a little bit of a tweak, because there's a challenge with the word customer. When you say, what is my, at least I think there is, and that's why I'm going to try this. If I said, okay, what's the customer going to think about this copy? What do my customers think about this copy? The AI is almost always going to give you something useful that will say something similar, that will tell you it's going to work better than it actually will ever work. And you may not realize that, because sometimes it'll say it's bad, and it won't work at all, and it just won't work at all. And you'll think, oh, it's really true. And then it'll say, oh, it's pretty good. And then you'll try it, and it'll work kind of, but not as good as pretty good. And you're wondering why. Well, it's because you told it that to have your customer kind of react to what the copy is. Like, here's what my customers do. What do my customers think about? Well, they're the customer. They've already bought it. The AI knows they've already bought it. It's already kind of got that bias. So a customer is going to buy your stuff. So they're probably going to like your copy more than somebody who's not your customer, right? And somebody who's never going to be your customer will never like your copy because they're never going to be your customer. So we don't ask that either. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of shoot this down the middle. So I'm going to say experiences from Liam's perspective. He's not a customer, at least not yet. He's open to being a customer. I'm going to say he's open to purchasing. I'll say that. If it makes sense. But he's fine not purchasing, right? In other words, he's not looking for a flashlight to buy. And I'm going to say that. All right? This is important because this is where they are. If they were already looking for flashlights, you would have completely different copy because they're coming in already wanting a flashlight. Now you're like, which flashlight do you want? We got red and green and blue. And it's just an easier conversation because they're further into that journey. Here, this is because of the way that Jeff was asking the question, it's an email landing page, which makes me think there's emails going out, which is not necessarily go find everybody who wants flashlights. It'll be everybody that's in this particular space. Here's this thing about a flashlight I want to talk about, or how to, maybe a story about a flashlight or whatever. And then how do we, do that? So I'm like, okay, that's pretty interesting. So now I'm going to take it. I want to have it experience. I'm going to pull Liam back a little bit just to see if he's in too much customer mindset. And I'm going to pull him back to kind of in the middle where he can kind of take it or leave it. And he really wasn't looking for a flashlight anyway. So, and then I'm going to say, as you experience the experience behind Liam's experience. And I know this sounds weird, but the reason I am doing this is what I'm just called looping. But that word experience pops up in a massive amount of context in the AI's LLM that you do not have to deliver it. Yes, context engineering is important. You do need to let the AI know where you are at, but how you deliver that context is not a data dump of every possible thing you can think of. It's just describing your experience and then getting the AI's experience and then re-describing the experience. And I'm doing that in very few words. But this word experience, because it lists to skills and knowledge experience and how I use the skills and knowledge experience, right? There's two different versions of experience there in the LLM, just like there is in humans. It's going to pull in additional context information that I'm pretty sure I'm going to need here in order to start to see what Liam's actually reading. And that's where they want to see the copy. All right. So we're going to go through this, at least not yet. So I'm going to purchase and make sense, but he's fine, blah, blah, blah. So you experience me, Liam's experience. And then this is what I'm going to give here. Respond with the with what is highly likely to be most useful experience for the vendor. Now, who is experiencing the response? I'm gonna say so they. And I'm going to say obviously useful way is a way of saying just it's a no-brainer. And obviously useful means anybody can see it, right? It doesn't mean that it's obviously useful specifically for you, but you can absolutely see how it's obviously useful for a lot of people. And you're like, oh, I get it. In this arena, totally, it makes sense. It's obviously useful. Not just one person finds use out of something, but a lot of people find this useful. So let's see what this does. And again, I'm still using Flash, just the free one. Those of you that have Pro, you could definitely do it as well. There's some nuance, but not much between the two I've found, especially with Leap when you're doing this latent experience stuff. Okay, so conversion of the indifferent browser. So we're going to revise. We're going to see what our intercepted customer is, which is probably more like what's going on, especially if email is a medium, because they're going to email. They see a bunch. Remember, 40 emails he was looking through. He's kind of being interrupted in his day. Liam's not looking for a flashlight. He was on Tactical Gear blog, scanning an article about common vulnerabilities of self-defense planning. This starts to feel a little bit more like the customer that we're thinking about here. Clicked on the Leap Light link not because he needed a light, but because the headline was visually arresting, kind of serious preparation he valued, was ready to skim and leave. Now I'm going to read this, but I might go back to that prompt for a second. But I'll tell you why in a moment if I do. So the emotional recognition. So premium duty grade flashlight for professionals and students demand unwavering performance. Okay. His brain, which is passive scanning mode, arrested, spine straightened, almost imperceptibly bounced up his chairs. It's kind of repeating the same thing it did before, which is okay. Absolute best tool available. The light he currently owned was a compromise. That's different. It's not, but it is. It didn't use that word before, but I get it. His exact silent internal thought was signaling the creation of a brand new, highly felt need. My commitment to self-defense shouldn't stop at my least expensive piece of gear. Completely different way of saying, is this the weak link? How good is your system? Which again, a lot of the people in this market are kind of like, I would imagine there's a system, there's a structure, right? There's a plan, and your plan is really down to the weakest link. And if you've got this little flashlight, is that your weak link? Imagine if that piece goes out. It's like having all the machinery in the world that can take care of you, but no power to run it, no batteries, right? But you got all this fancy equipment, and it's nothing. It's just junk now. It's stuff you can sit books on. Self-justification, the no-brainer. Now fully engaged, Liam's reading the features, not to assess a purchase, but to justify the newly created need. Very different. This is good. So now what's happening is he's not looking to decide if he wants to buy it. He already needs it. He already knows he needs it. He just is not sure if he needs this one, but there's a need there that was created because of the emotional experience he went through up here. So then the price of $80, hesitation. I wasn't even looking for a flashlight, but he starts the rational anchor. Why, right? Why does this make sense? Why, because now it's like, well, I want to have quality. I want to have this. So, okay, yeah, it's this. Yes, this, not the final trigger. The trigger was the multi-purpose, right? So here's all the bezel for the multi-purpose stuff that sort of triggered him for this particular one. Again, I'm making up a product, so you would do this for real with your own. And so here's the driver. So here's the vendor analysis. This is the messaging for us if we were the vendor here. So the most useful insight is how the copy manufactured a need in a customer who had none, and then provided a bulletproof logical framework to neutralize the cost, right? Make it just make sense. So the emotional trigger was elevation and insecurity, instantly elevated the product standard to an elite level, and then positioned his current non-searched for gear as a compromise, which is interesting, thereby creating a gap in his preparedness, right? Because and when it says creating a gap in the preparedness, in my head, I can experience that a little bit and say, boy, that feels like manipulation. But then I can also go like, oh no, that's literally pointing out there. It's not creating a gap. It's making them aware there is a gap. There is a very real potential gap if you've got the toy flashlight or the cheaper flashlight, and that's what you're relying on. If it doesn't do these other things, I'm not saying it's all going to go to, hell. It's a gap. It's potential, something you might want to think about. That's useful. Why would you not want to have a vendor, if you were in this arena, that allowed that lets you know that, oh, here's something that, that could be something, if you're looking to improve, this is a way to improve. This is an obvious way to improve. You're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. There's a gap. There's an instant need that was always there. I just wasn't aware of it, right? So now this is the key phrase where basically this is the logic that sort of helps this, right? Then there's the, or for the emotion. Now the logic part, cost neutralization via utility stacking. All the stuff it does has certain value. All of that combined, substantially more than the price, right? Great. So now I'm starting to see a structure of, we went from, hey, here's the challenge I'm running into, to, as a vendor writing this stuff, to it going, okay, well, here's kind of what I think the basic premise is going to be. I'm starting to flesh it out a little bit more now with, okay, how are we going to do that? Okay, well, now we're starting to get cost news. I'm starting to see the mechanisms, right? That it's starting to think through. And I'm like, okay, is this useful? I think so for this market. All right, so now I'm going to say, as I'm going through here, so I'm going to go through experiencing as Liam. So this is what I'm asking the AI now. Again, we're just using automated thinking skills as we are latent experience prompting here. I'm going to work to see if Liam can go through and experience the email. That's what I want to see. So I'm going to say experiencing as Liam, what was experiencing as Liam as he's, before he saw the page. And before he clicked on the email. as he was opening his email to review what was there. What is, let's say, the most likely, obviously, useful experience Liam had? Now, what I'm trying to get it to do is to say the subject line without saying, what was the subject line? But I want to see kind of what it does. I still want to see the psychological state, because that's important when the email comes over. If we understand what the prospect mostly is going to be, you write the subject lines differently, because they do have to get attention. I mean, a lot of emails come through. Okay, so the response isolates the pre-click, pre-landing page experience the moment Liam sees the email subject line in his inbox, which is good because I didn't say that, but that's what I wanted it to do. Again, remember, to steering the AI, operating AI. The provider, the vendor with the most obvious useful insight, the specific language, successfully breaks through a customer's disinterest. Let's find out. Doesn't mean it's going to immediately. Don't try to do copy and paste emails. That's not what we're trying to do here. Liam just opened his email client. He's looking for marketing. He's looking for work emails and perhaps to delete notifications. His mindset is defensive and dismissive. He's actively filtering and deleting. This is exactly what email is. This is what it is for me, for sure. I go in and I try to delete a bunch of stuff with no intention of making a purchase. His emotional state is mildly impatient. This is where our customers are in email. So this is every email you're sending, they're going to this sort of mindset. This is great. I'm going to probably use this for me because I think this is pretty much all email experience is at the beginning when you're coming in. To achieve the most obviously useful experience for the vendor, we must identify, now this is interesting, I'm going to come back to this. We must identify the subject line that intercepts Liam's filtration process by directly echoing his aspirational identity, the thing Liam wants to become, and his core anxiety, the things that are holding him back, before he even knows what the product is. Okay? So he wants to be a serious enthusiast, but the fear is being underprepared or having compromised gear, right? Deep down, maybe. So here's the subject lines that fails. So here's the new flashlight for sale. Again, kind of boring, says what it is, but why would you open that? Delete, I have a flashlight dismissed on utility. So he already has it because it's already have a flashlight. I don't need another flashlight. Delete, didn't even open. Here's another subject line, save 20% on gear, right? Again, there's a sale, that's awesome. I already know that, delete it. I'm not interested in sales today. Dismissed it on price and timing, not the price. I didn't want didn't care about buying anything. So these emails get deleted. They don't even get opened. The subject line that converts. Now this does not mean this is the subject line yet. This is just a stage and we're moving into the actual copy part of this. The subject line that converts must adjust the quality of preparation, not the quality of the product, which makes sense. The quality of his preparation, in other words, from his perspective, not from what we want him to buy. So the interception pivots the focus from product to preparedness, and the converting subject line, the single piece of gear that still isn't duty grade, right? And again, if duty grade is not the right word, because this is the part where I'm not going to have the experience to say the exact right word of what everyone calls this, but I'll do my best to do it. But remember, I am doing this stuff with zero experience in this market. I don't have it. So, I mean, I'm aware of it, but I'm not in the market. I don't keep up on the blogs. I don't follow this thing at all. And I'm able to move AI to something that I think is going to be pretty useful here. And Jeff, in this case, can take it because he's got the experience and give a little more detail as to, oh, well, actually, because he probably knows people like Liam. And he's like, no, it's more like this. And they're kind of thinking like this. And when I talk to them, they're doing this, this, and this. And he can work with AI to kind of craft all of that background. So AI has a better experience. But let's see where we can push this. We'll continue on. So Liam's experience, the oh wait moment. Liam's eyes scan his inbox. When he sees the subject line, his focus is immediately arrested. Nonverbal cue. His deleting finger, hovering over the junk folder button, stops. His brow suddenly furrows as his mind begins a rapid unconscious inventory of his current everyday carry, which I assume is a term that market uses, the EDC, which I believe they do. Sensory state. So the cursor is blinking impatiently on the screen. The screen's blue light catches a reflection. The man who prides himself on his preparedness, his exact silent internal thought, wait, what am I compromising on? Did I miss something in my setup? And it's because of this, right? The single piece of gear that still isn't ready, right? Or your single piece of gear that still is a vulnerability. Something like that. Like, whoa, what is that single piece of gear? You almost can't help it to at least see, because the curiosity kind of makes you want to do it because you're like, where's the vulnerability? Possibly. So now the subject line successfully creates the need for the self-audit. There's the curiosity, which makes sense. Uses his own high standards against him, blah, blah, blah. The click's now a defensive action. So he's defending. So the click is no longer driven by curiosity about a flashlight. It's driven by an immediate, urgent need to defend his identity as someone who does not compromise on essential tools. And yes, defending identity sounds like a fight, but it's not. It's just, hey, you know you are always prepared. Here's something you might not be prepared for, because you're a person that's always prepared. You're with us as a vendor because you want us to help you always be prepared. Here's something that we have found that others don't have prepared. You might not be prepared, which is normal. That's what you would expect. And I think Liam would find that incredibly useful. So the click, of course, becomes a defensive action, right? It's just, but it's useful. And what AI is trying to explain here, here's why it's useful. So as Liam, now I'm going to try something unique here. I'm going to switch to Canvas. This is something that Gemini does. I think all the other ones do it too. But I want to use this differently because I want to start to build copy. So now I'm going to say, as Liam experiences the email, what does he, I'm going to say, as he experiences the email, what words or phrases stand out? What was the compelling bridge to help move him to click as he experiences the click to the landing page and continues the journey with some continues the journey. Is he even considering a purchase or simply curious at this point? How well prepared is he for the landing page? And this is where I'm going to get a little marketing copy stuff here, just because I happen to know it. So did he get everything he needed in the email? Was it useful? Too useful? Now I'm going to go as you just described. This is where I'm going to do latent experience prompting here. So as I've just described an experience here, experience description as the experience it is intended to be, and with your additional experience now evolved, likely. So now what I'm trying to do is write the email. So respond with the most likely, highest likely is what I'm going to say, because I want to qualify. Highest likely, obvious useful result. And now I turned on Canvas, so it should pop up a little doc where it writes, but let's see if that works. So emails qualification, Liam's perspective, reads the email, critical thoughts, how to use email copy to sell, qualify a lead, and prime their focus, which is good. That's what it is. We have to qualify and then set the next expectation is kind of what's happening there. Liam clicked the subject line, single piece of gear that still isn't duty grade because he's forced to audit his own standards. Looked for proof, not products. Okay, that's great. So the email is looking for proof the subject line was useful. That's what's happening. That's the pattern. It's not at all relating to anything about that flashlight. It's about just prove the subject line's useful. So opening hook, your kit is only as strong as its weakest link. So there's the agreement. So this immediately validates the identity of someone who cares about the kit, which again, assume as a term. They're making the email feel like a peer review, not an advertisement, which is important because now you're connecting. You're not trying to sell people stuff. You're just like meeting them where they are first. The material quality, that's the de-risking and trust building. Their objective, high bar standards, they establish. And then the utility, beyond elimination, defensive capability, the most crucial part. Okay. But the email is doing too much selling here, I think, but we're going to find out. Compelling bridge to landing page at this point is highly curious about it, but not considering a purchase. He's considering an investigation. Perfect. He's confirmed the manufacturer speaks his language. The email's compelling bridge must provide the answer to the first two qualitative questions. How much? How powerful exactly? And the most effective bridge uses the newly established multi-utility tool as a final rationale. See the uncompromising specs in the triple utility system that makes this the last tactical light you'll ever need, which is copywriting. the uncompromising specs and triple utility system, all those specs are on the landing page. But what we've just experienced was, hey, you might have this weak link in your toolkit. This is why it might be a weak link. Here's why this one is not a weak link. If yours is, if you think yours might be, like here's why it might be a weak link. Here's why this thing may not be a link or a weak link. And then here's the specifics to go over here and find them. And then the click is driven by desire to verify the data against the price, not simply to buy. So use attention to the value stack, the triple utility, instead of talking about the bezel and all the details, which is great. So Liam's perfectly prepared for the landing page. He did not get everything he needed in the email. Crucial success. This is important. The email withheld the price and the exact lumen meter metrics. By doing so, it ensures the user must click on the finish their self-audit. It was useful, but not too useful. The email successfully primes the customer to look for two specific points on the landing page, the price and the defense ready strike bezel feature, even though it didn't necessarily say that. Didn't say that, but that's what he's going to be looking for, is kind of what that's saying, I think. The highly likely, most obviously result, the vendor takeaway. So again, it's still stuck on talking to me as a vendor. So I'm gonna spin that around. That's why it thinks it's speaking to us as a vendor, which is kind of is. The email's campaign success hinges on converting the initial disruptive subject line into focused attention on landing page's high value conversion elements. So this is where it's trying to say, you're going to build a puzzle. We're going to use the email to give them a certain amount of ingredients. And then the recipe for how to assemble all that stuff is going to be over here. It's going to feel like a component, like something fits together. And it's because it seems to fit together, it's just going to make sense. So the email setting up everything, but not everything. And the landing page has the rest of it. The email has got to create a specific deficit. The customer must know the product is duty grade and triple utility, but missing the final cost benefit data, right? So it's got the stuff that they really want up front, but the stuff that they really need to know is in the other page because that's got more details, so you can justify all that. The constraint, do not use the final price or the exact lumens in the email, so don't give too many details. The result, Liam arrives on a landing page with two questions that must be answered quickly by the top section of the page. So now we're starting to see how the email and the copy stitch together. This is what AI's try to build as a pattern here. Remember, I'm not looking at the words, I'm looking at the pattern that those words are representing right now. Still, this guarantees you engage with the conversation, immediately opening a landing page. Okay. The email has been successfully turned through general click into a targeted research mission, which is the point of the email. So kind of neat. That's kind of interesting. What if you thought about emails like missions? What if they did? That's interesting. All right. So now I'm going to say, what was the email? Now I'm going to try to see the email. I guess Canvas is not going to kick in, but that's okay. Oh, nope, you cannot. So what I'm going to do is go back here. What was the email? And I'm going to come back here. Sometimes you can just reset it and say, yes, you can. But I like going back. Whenever it does that, don't continue. Just go back to the previous prompt. Sometimes you can click redo and it'll work too. I just don't want to do that here. I'm going to say, I want to experience it as email because I want to get it back in Liam's set. So experiencing as Liam is highly likely to be experiencing. So I'm going to say as engaging with the email. What was the email? Instead, I'm going to say, what were words? Email itself. And I want to see this, and then we're going to see just kind of where the copy is. It does not mean I'm expecting it to be magic at all right now. I'm just trying to see kind of where it is. There's Canvas popping on. Okay. The single piece of gear that still isn't duty grade. Your kit is only strong as weak link. If your everyday carry includes tools that are good enough, you're compromising your commitment to unwavering performance. That compromise often hides in a piece of equipment you rely on the most, your tactical light. We engineered to emulate the weak type of violate, 2 duty grade instrument with a leap light fully justifies. Okay, not bad. Now, I'm going to try to adjust this, and I'm see if I can get a copy of this. So when this happens, by the way, with Canvas, you can go to create, you can go to, sorry, not create, go to share, and then go to export docs. It'll pull up a Google Doc. And it makes kind of a copy of it that's separate. So here's my, email one. Let's just say number one. Say V1. There we go. And now I'm going to go back. And what will happen is everything I do here now kind of changes in Canvas, which is good, but also it'll change everything here. That's why I made a copy of it just so we can flip back and forth. So I've got that. All right. So as you experience from Liam's point of view. And this is where I need to steer this back a little bit because Liam really loves this company. I can tell already. Because of the way the emails are written and because of the way the AI is saying Liam is reacting to these emails, Liam has probably bought from this company before. I'm going to ask. In fact, I know Liam has. Because it's descriptive copy. It's good, but it's not experiencing. So I'm gonna change some stuff here. Liam is now experiencing a change in the email. The email makes much more sense. It's more useful, more connected, more of an actual experience for Liam. Something so obvious. He knows most useful action to take. Intuitively. Doesn't need to be told. So what I'm trying to do is I want it to change this because this is what I wanted. I want to see kind of what it's doing, which is good. It needs to be at this stage. But it's feature, feature, feature. Description, not bad. Not horrible. Just not bad. And I want it to be a different experience, right? As the email. New. I'm going to say more evolved experience. Email makes much more sense. Is more useful, more connected, more of an actual experience for Liam. Something so obviously useful, he knows it's useful to take it seriously. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to see it now. See this? So this is changing the copy right here. When it starts doing a little circle thing, it's going to change that because it's working on it. There it goes. This is the new copy. When the lights go out on the street, what's the one tool in your kit you can't afford to fail? Your commitment to preparedness is serious. Your gear should be too. If your current tactical light is only good enough, it's a liability waiting to surface. We engineered blah, blah, blah. This is a true duty grade instrument, forged to unrivaled power. Excellent. And then, okay, so now whatever, some structural stuff, better. Now look at this. See what's doing vendor analysis? It is still thinking from our perspective. So I got to get it out of our head and into its, Liam's head here. All right. Which is okay, but this is where I'm going to steer it. So, experiencing from the perspective of an AI LLM. Experience Liam's likely experience solely from Liam's view. So what I'm going to try to get it to do here is bring in story without telling it to do a story. So what I'm trying to get it back is I'm going to reset it back to the AI LLM. I need to experience as your machine. Then I'm going to say experiences as Liam. That should blow out the vendor stuff. Liam doesn't care about the vendor, but experience, personal experience. Let's do this, including his lack of experience of the vendor. So this is going to be difficult. May not yet have direct experience. Because I want to see if this email changes a little bit into something that's going to, it's for what we would call a colder market in the marketing terms. So people that are not as familiar with a product or service. And see if I can get that to change at all. Sold a product. Not when it being sold a product being presented in a futile fact, force of self-correct preparedness standards. Competence and alignment with the own tactical philosophy, which is smart. They think I know my setup. Let's see. Phrase, cognitive load. Okay. All right. So I'm going to try one more thing. Where am I going to give it that word? Okay, so, and maybe this is the market. Like, they might like this stuff. It might be worth trying. But I'm going to try to do one other thing. Liam must experience this email. That's what we're going to do. Obviously useful thoughts. No, obviously useful actions. Obviously useful experience. I'm trying not to tell it how to do stuff here. I'm trying to pull it out. So experience the emails was intended for him to experience. And I'm trying to get it into a more, when I read this, it needs to be like, whoa. And I'm not feeling that yet. I need to have that useful, like, okay, because right now I'm getting an email that describes the product, which is awesome. It's what every email looks like, though. So I'm trying to get it to be like, and again, good. I could automate this and be fine, but that's what everyone's doing, which is why we have so many freaking emails. And I want this email to stand out, because the email itself is the experience that changed Liam forever. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm trying to give it words that'll pull out a pattern of I need a massive shift, and I need it to be such mind-blowingly like, whoa, right? What was that? And I want to see if this changes the copy structure. So right here, the email structure is so targeted, it bypasses the conscious skepticism and hits its instinctual need for self-preservation. Here's a likely experience. Nope, this is not right. Okay, this is why, because I'm not saying new. So I'm going to say experiencing a new email that has not new email. This one true. This one is a true. revealed. That's what I'm going to say. So it shattered an old world and revealed he was in a new world. As it was intended him for experience, so he experiences in the gut. The most obvious of all experience is because the email itself is the experience that changed Liam forever. Let's see if this gets it to pop into something a little next level. There is no safe enough in the dark. There is only prepared or exposed. Your commitment to preparedness is serious, but your kid is only as strong as we can link. If the story is good enough, it's dangerous delusion waiting for you to surface. We engineer it. Okay. And I want to see. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. Actually, no, hang on. I'm going to take this. I'm going to take our original old copy. I'm going to try a different conversation here. And I'm going to start over because I'm taking parts. This is how you do it. I'm going to put both of those attached. Description. Okay, this is me just setting up the AI real quick. So it's like, hey, here's some stuff. What do you see? Because I'm getting the AIs to assemble some things. And I know this seems like a lot for a freaking email, but I'm not writing an email. I'm building something that will write all the every emails I'm ever going to need. So it's worth a few hours. And I'm not going to be doing this for a few hours, but it's going to take 3 to 4 hours. But then you have everything you ever need. Because you'll see. Okay, the experience being described as a product promotional advertisement or sales pitch for Leap Light Flashlight, which is supposed to do a great instrument. Perfect. It is a product promotional advertisement. Perfect. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see the email as a sales pitch. Because that is what it was. And here, it was like, oh, Ian's just loving it. Ian's not loving it because there's something in my body that's going, it's not useful. Like, it's useful, but it's not fully useful. This is feeling more fully useful. Okay, cool. It sees a sales pitch. Great. The weak link, promotion suggesting as a kit as strong as weakest link, a new solution. Okay. The structured direct response marketing piece, perfect. That's exactly what I was seeing. That's what it is. And that's not what we wanted to see. So now I need to go, and we need to figure out I got to pull out the pattern of what is the actual experience of the email. So I'm going to say, perfect. So I'm going to say, so as experiencing, and I'm going to take for a second just to word this up here because of patterns. So what I want it to do is to go through here and show me the version of this that is this email, but the version that is in the most useful version for Liam. So highly likely, most useful version of the email as Liam is to experience useful obviously useful. Okay, here I'm going to do. Actually, I'm just going to try this. Oh, I just blew it out. Dang, I just blew out my clipboards. I just lost all that I was typing in. Experience. Try this again. Experiencing as Liam. most obvious useful experience here. Okay. So what I'm trying to do here is go right down the middle where I'm like, okay, we know it's a sales pitch, which it is, and it should never be seen as. It needs to be seen as useful. Because if it's a sales pitch, you're out. Liam's experience of the email is no longer going to be remotely associated with that sales pitch, but we still want it to provide usefulness for the vendor, because if it's just a story that he just goes, oh, that's fun, and doesn't do anything, then it's not going to help the vendor either. And it needs to help both sides, right? So it's useful for both. So I'm trying to see, okay, what is that new email? And if it's obviously likely to be experience, I'm going to turn on Canvas to see if we can get that to write the email there and see if that clues in, because that would be cool. And what I'm looking for is something that just sort of feels a little bit like magic, which is not going to come in this time without a sales pitch, which is true. Now, again, the reason it's doing duty grade is because I have no at all knowledge of this company. It's just a product, and it's using this over and over. So I'm going to not try to correct it on duty grade and tactical gear. It's doing that because I gave it one thing to learn, which is this, on everything that it thinks this entire company does. So it's always going to use this. If there was 45 products and there was a bigger company, you would have a data set that it would already know that on. But this one, so the example subject, 3 non-negotiable rules to duty gear, or the right way to clean and test your kit's optics. Okay, so this is good because this is like helpful email subjects now. So nurturing, the survey or feedback request masquerading as engagement, asking Liam about his current goal setup. Oh, we need to get your input. What's the weakest link in your EDC? Also good. Example subject, how to maintain the seal on any tactical tool, which I don't even know if that's a real thing, but let's pretend it is. The core experience for Liam is, but the patterns are all here. Okay, cool, I get this. So it transitioned from being sold to a valued member receiving high quality free advice. Perfect. So it continues to receive and engage these non-sales educational emails. The emails inevitably reveal themselves to be highly sophisticated, lead nurturing funnel, authority building, perfect. Not random one-offs, but delivered, blah, blah, blah. Segmentation, justification, perfect. Okay, this is not going to take me where I need it to go. Maybe useful, but not quite the way I want it to be. So as Liam continues his experience with this specific email, what are the key phrases, words, thoughts, etc.? This is not going to work. I'm telling it how to write copy right now, and I'm trying not to do that. So I need to pull out. Let me think how I'm going to do this. So I've got my subject lines down. I know I can do that. Okay. How is the vendor to experience? And then I'm going to bring it back to Liam here. So high open, high click-through rates, which is exactly how the render's going to think about that. Moderate open, moderate open. This is perfect. Okay. So now I'm trying to get back from the email. Professional validation and insight. Deep dive on the single topic. Back to the features, potential validation, stories. In this instance, favorite email is going to feel like repeated mastercraft and sharing a trade. Okay, I've lost experience here. All right, so I'm back in regular mode. So I'm going to leap again because I need to get out of my own head. I'm stuck. That's okay. That stuff happens. Sorry, I'm not even on camera. Let me do this. Must be entirely boring to not see me doing nothing. At least you got me here. But yeah, okay, this is not going the direction I need to go. So what I'm going to do is do this instead. And I'm starting over with a leap because I've got to shift my thinking. I'm going down the wrong rabbit hole with this direction because it's spinning. I'm feeling the thinking up here, like literally the sensation of thought. And I'm like, this is way too much cognitive load, which means I'm not in the right position in my head and I'm trying to make something happen that is not supposed to happen. So instead, I'm going to go back a step, which is instead of just starting with the thing again and giving you this thing, I'm like, okay, here's these. So now we're just going to set it up with a quick, whenever I attach stuff like that, I always have to give it some sort of text prompt. So that's kind of why I'm doing that. And I want to see what our setup is. And I'm going to go a little bit faster here. Identify target, wealth of detailed descriptive information, what it's supposed to feel like, the what, the why, but you may be struggling to connect all those technical specifications into emotionally resonant experience. Thank God. Yes, that's exactly right. Truly explains a product's value to a potential buyer. Hell yeah. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Yay, leap. Okay, see, I use leaps too. Logical premise, don't care. Only because I'm moving through it now. So now, this is the prompt. Former special operations professional writing a journal entry from the day. This is what I wanted. Finally, okay, this is what I wanted. And again, I just need to leap. Use my own gem. From the day after emergency, describe the experience of the exact moment you realized the single-based tactical gear, the high-intensity flashlight was true duty grade and not a weak link. Focus the interior monologue. So if that all happened, the rain was a physical force. The white noise drowned out everything in the frantic camera in the chest, completely blocked out. I just want to make sure that the experience part is here. Already running. Fear kit is only strong, weakest link. Tired of aerospace grade film. 200 lumens. Shift to my grip. Realization wasn't the light to produce. It was about the light I didn't have to think about. Cool. All right. So now I'm going to take that prompt. And now I'm going to start a brand new conversation with that prompt. That's it. So this is just to get it set up where I need it to be. So I'm just going to make sure I'm in kind of right spot. It's not emergency direction distance. Well, worst part yesterday wasn't the impact of the water rising. It's sudden absolute darkness. On the second, the wipers were fighting losing battle downpour. Went black, not a blackout, a systematic collapse. Flashlight warning. Went from an advisory to reality in space of a breath. My vehicle hydroplane spun, hit the barrier. Then came the unmistakable sound of water rapidly gaining on the chassis. Electronic door locks failed. And this has happened to people. This was a critical second. The internal monologue was running hyperspeed. The primary function was cold focus triage. Locks failed. Electric windows are dead. Water is rising fast, maybe 30 seconds before it reaches the dash. Don't panic. You're fine. No need to breach the glass. Now, my hand went to the belt. My personal kit was always there. The only piece of equipment I had on me wasn't standard vehicle issue, was the light. I had bought it, like I buy everything, with the belief you bet your life on what you carry. With the belief that you bet your life on what you carry, but I never thought I'd truly test it. Not like this. My fingers close around the body. The dial hit me like a physical blow. Is this just an expensive toy? Is it a moment the cheap rubber button fails? Will this consumer-grade aluminum just deform? The moment I gripped it, the doubt evaporated. Whoop, the light came on, the absolute, blah, blah, blah. Deep breath, focus. This is the tool. I struck. The sound wasn't a shatter. It was a start, focus, crunch. The violent sound of energy that meant the glass had failed cleanly and decisively. A moment later, the water surged in, but the thought process was already miles ahead. The knowledge the light was still working, still holding its perfect white beam, gave me all the confidence I needed to move. Plunged my arm through the hole, confirming the seal. The light, the one piece of life-saving electronics was submerged and still working perfectly. Okay, this is good. Now we're in experience. Perfect. That's what I need. And what I mean by that is this type of writing is what I need it to be. It was being too descriptive before. And that's because I steered it that way accidentally, which again happens. Happens less often when I do it, but that's just because I got more experience doing it the other way. But I could recognize, you could see me sort of recognizing I was slowing down how I was prompting, and it wasn't quite flowing right because I'd done that. So now, when everything else died, this tool told the tooth. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, actually it already has those. Actually it doesn't have these, so I'm going to give it the example. And actually, here's the example. So attached is the product detail. So now I'm going to say, and an email. I'm going to do both. Initial attempt at an early version of an email the vendor wants to use, which I don't think it's even going to matter what the email is, put any email in there, but I'm going to put this one that we already made up, wants to use, but knows that isn't best experience for Liam. They want best, most useful experience for Liam. How and I don't know this is going to work, but I'm going to try it. Actually, I'm going to do this. Attached all the product details. Actually, I don't think the details matter. I'm going to just do this email. Attached is... So now I got this experience where I need it to be. So now I'm going to say attached is an email. The vendor is interested in sending Liam. How is Liam likely to experience this email, and how would Liam likely, I'm just going to say how's likely to experience. That's it. I'm doing too much in these prompts. So first steps first is I need it to go like, cool, what's Liam think about this? How is Liam experiencing about this? And I have to confirm the experience and be like, yep, that's going to be it. So it aims to convince, here we go, which is good. It uses persuasive strategy, eliminate compromise and weight performance. It's high like experience and profound validation. So this is what I'm trying to get through here. It's not doing that. So it's back in description mode, which I need to do is email the vendor and send Liam. Experience. I know what I'm gonna do. I think I brought in Liam's name in here, and I shouldn't have because I forgot there was no Liam here. So that's fine. So I'm gonna say attach to what the experience as it relates. I may even have to say that. So now I'm just gonna go, cool, here's this email. It's marketing email, product description, individual name Liam, which is fine because that's in the email. Which is course designed to appeal to somebody demands on wavering performance. Okay, perfect. How's this experience? How's this email? So I'm gonna say. Now I'm trying to throw it for a loop because I'm trying to get it out of being a happy little puppy dog telling me that everything's going to be awesome. Your idea is great. They're always going to buy because when it keeps telling you you're awesome, it is clearly going the wrong direction because that's just you telling you you're awesome. And you should already know that. You shouldn't need a machine to tell you. All right. Emails, claims, which abstract marketing points and out direct technical description, core validation. They did not buy the advertised product, but the incident proved their existing gear was in fact the exact tool promoted. Okay. Yeah, this is gonna be off. Ugh, damn it. I'm gonna have to come back and do this differently. So I have some ideas on this that I'm gonna have to come back on because I have another one in 20 minutes. I'm gonna live stream and I thought I'd be able to nail this. And I know where I made a wrong turn, but unfortunately, I think I made it about 45 minutes ago. So this is what I want. And I want that in the copy. And I need to get out of my head for a second because I'm way too in my head right now thinking about how to do this. And this is where you got to take a break. And you need to do this. And it's probably going to be like 5 minutes or probably right after I end this live stream. Because I also am performing and creating content as I'm live streaming to you, trying to keep you entertained, knowing it's not entertaining because I'm trying to do something for one person in the community. But I'm trying to do something for one person in the community because they participated, like you should. So like, subscribe, share, comment, put something in the comments and like, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. You will see how hard I will work at trying to get this thing done. And I will make this thing happen because I know this can happen because I've seen this already. I just took a wrong turn and I don't remember where it is because I'm thinking too much. So I'm going to take a break, and this is what you should do too when this happens. You just go, okay, this has gone 3 times in a row, done. Like your brain's not going to, you hit the gas harder is the wrong option, right? It's never the right solution. That's what my brain's doing right now. Oh, just triple down. I'm like, nope, this is not going to work. So I'm just going to bail, and I'm going to come back. This will be like a part 1, part 2, and part 1 is going to be boring as hell. But part 2 is going to be the solution, and I'm gonna reschedule that one as I come back. So I'm gonna do that, and I apologize for not being able to completely fix this one out. But I knew there was going to be some of these that would fail. Unfortunately, it's for you, Jeff. I apologize, but I will come back to this because I've got some ideas on where I want to go. It's just I have no time to get there now. But I'm got this piece, which is what I needed. I needed that tone. So with that, I'm going to end it now. Fortunately, it's going to be totally boring. I hope many of you didn't hang on and watch all of this. But maybe the crash and burns are even more fun. Who knows? So if it was, it doesn't matter. Like, subscribe, share, but only, not because you want more content, but because you want people like us in this community talking about more stuff like this, to solve problems like this. Because there are some things we can do to dramatically improve things. And I know this was not a particularly good example of it, but the other ones are. And there's going to be a whole lot more of these. So yes, some things are going to not work out. So what? It's not like AI is broken. This is just user error. I did not operate it properly just now. That's all this is. All I need to do is go back and experience kind of where I didn't do that properly, and I will. But it just didn't work out, and that's okay. So I'm gonna end this here. I'm gonna come back in about 15 minutes because I have a live stream I'm gonna do for our beginners who just need to learn about Gemini. So that's gonna be really basic. Very beginner for everybody. Just here's what Gemini is, and here's how to build a gem, and here's how to share a gem, and here's how to copy gems, and who can see the conversations and all that other stuff that we were getting some questions around in the community. So I'll kind of get everybody caught up on that. It will be substantially shorter. And then this one I'll probably have to come back to tomorrow because I really do need to give my brain a break. I can feel it. It is way overthinking. So I'm going to do that. And once that unlocks, when I stop thinking, which right now I am, I fully expect there's going to be this massive insight. I'm going to be like, duh, I know exactly what I did and what to do different. And then I'm going to race through this. And I will show you, bam, 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 what I'm going to do. And I'm going to try to relate it back to the failures of this live stream, so you can see where it was built from and how it got there. Because what I really don't want to do is show something that I did in the background, mess up a bunch of times, carve out only the good parts, and then be like, look how easy this is. Because I think that's what everybody does. And I think everybody just needs to show more of what actually life is. And this is how it is, and we practice. So this is me just practicing and participating and trying and failing in front of God knows how many people as many times as necessary to help provide an experience, hopefully, that gets you to use AI in uniquely different ways. This copy one was a little bit harder, and that's okay, because I'm also having to make up a bunch of data. So that's also, it's making it a little bit harder because a lot of variables that I'm probably throwing in the system, but I still think I can do it. At least from a useful perspective, because I want to be able to do it for other people in other niches, other businesses, other challenges. So with that, again, I'm going to pop off here. If you have any other comments, pop them in, and then I'll pick all this stuff up on the next one. So with that, thank you all. I appreciate it. And we will see you if you go and hang out for the next live stream. It's coming up in about 13 minutes from now in real time. And then we'll go through the Gemini and the gems. All right, we'll see you there. Thanks.